Shalom, Master Parker, or greeting to my family, sojourners, foreigners, my tribe, welcome.
Shalom, shalom. Welcome indeed to another session with us, the Nazarene of Yahuwah. Praise Yahuwah. Today's topic, as you see on your screen, tithes and offering, giving back to Yahuwah. Well, I suppose Zaqan or Elder Kris will lead today's presentation, and we'll have different discussions at different points.
Yes, we do.
Praise Yahuwah.
Praise Yahuwah.
Praise Yahuwah.
Revelation 12, verse 9. And the great dragon was cast out, that old serpent called the devil and Ashatan, which deceives the whole world. He was cast out in the earth, and his angels were cast out with him. Indeed, we know the enemy, Ashatan, the devil, is a big deceiver. And we have seen where he had twisted the scripture over and over to use it for his gain. Here we have Malachi 3, verse 8. Will a man rob Yahuwah? Yet you have robbed me. But you say, how have we robbed you? In tithes and offering? You are cursed with a curse, for you have robbed me, even this old nation. You must bring all the tithes into the storehouse, that there may be meat in my house. And prove me now herewith, said Yahuwah of hosts, if I will not open the windows of heaven and pour you out a barakah, or a blessing, that there shall not be room enough to receive it. This is a scripture that they use in Christianity a lot. And we hear
A lot of
preachers,
people don't know what you just said. In what?
Christianity, that they use a lot. And we hear preachers over and over telling their members that they need to bring their tithes, their money, to the house of the Father to help or to assist in their building or whatever it may be that they want help with.
Previously, because before we cross over into being Natsarim of Yahuwah, all of us would have been exposed to that. In fact, we would have also encouraged other persons to do the same thing. So we would have heard a lot of preachers using this particular scripture to say to persons, the fact that you're not taking 10% of your salary means that you are robbing the Most High. And so you find that a lot of persons, like myself, would religiously take 10% of our salary. Then we're asked to also take offering, and we're also asked to take seed offering. We're also asked to take special gifts, money that is. And we're also asked to take special offerings for those in need. So you're giving money for tithes, money for offering, money for seed, money for special offering, money for events. They have rallies and they have all sorts of things, and you're always just bringing money, 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 money. But they would defend more than anything else the money that they tell you to take as 10% of your salary or wages. And I never used to have a problem with giving. I love giving, still love giving. But I had a major concern about the different types of monetary gifts that I thought were overlapping. And when I say that, I mean, if I'm giving tithe, I'm giving offering, and as money, I thought from that should come whatever help is needed for those in need. Because I remember seeing scripture about orphans and widows and taking care of others and so on. So I thought that I shouldn't be taking additional money because it should come from there. That was my thinking. So I had a big problem with that. And this is a scripture that they would, as you say, Elder Kris, use a lot to emphasize or drive home the point of bringing 10% of the salary, and so you see a lot of persons in these assemblies who some would take out of burden, some out of necessity, some reluctantly do it. Some would feel so messed up when they would use money from this so-called tithe to do some urgent things in their lives, like paying a bill or paying a school fee or buying something for the business or whatever. They did something with it and they would feel so bad because they thought, hey, the preacher just said I'm robbing the Most High because of this, because they're saying they're using the money that they're supposed to take in. But from this, I see some highlighted stuff here.
Yes. Just before I mention what's highlighted and what the preachers normally do when they say that you're robbing you're robbing the Most High, they let you feel as I say guilty by preaching sermons like they're targeting you and going back to this and say you need to trust the Most High. If you are trust the Most High, then you wouldn't have used the tithes.
And for those who don't understand, we don't say God, because that's a generic title. In another video upload, we'll look at some words that you won't necessarily hear those who are Natsarim of the Most High or the tribes of Israel using, and we say Israel. It's really, in the English, some say Israel, and we're not talking about that land over there now with people who you know with those black hats, black suits, twirly hair. We're not talking about that. We're talking about scriptural Yisrael, and according to scripture, the descendants of Yisrael. So you'll hear us speaking of the Most High by his name, Yahuwah.
All right. You must bring all the tithes into the storehouse. Now, tithes is highlighted into the storage. Now, we know that storehouse, as you can see from the picture below, it depicts a area where food is stored. So, based on what we see there, and the word tithes, it seems like tithes may be food.
Oh no, maybe the rest of the highlight says there may be meat in mine house.
So,
in this case, meat spoke to food. So bring all the tithes, in other words, bring all of whatever tithe is. I suppose as you go along, you'll explain what tithe is. So bring the food in the storehouse. That's, of course, the storehouses of the Most High. And prove him if he will not open the windows of heaven or the Shamayim. And that, whenever he spoke of that in scripture, usually represented rain coming upon your crops, your produce, your the work of your hands. And he says, you won't have room enough to receive it. The storehouses, people tend to want to now say that the storehouses speaks to a church. But we're told and we're warned not to add to or remove from the word of the Most High. So just as there are some who say that, the TaNaK or the First Covenant, or what some call Old Testament, is done away with, yet they pick this thing up from the Torah and apply it as money that must be applicable to today. And I suppose as we move forward, we'll go a little bit more in depth to see whether or not this is as it is presented today. Yeah.
And I see they are robbing you the Most High. So, what is tithe? Now, according to Scripture, tithe is a tenth of produce, livestock, food, olive oil, or wine. Now, the Hebrew word for tithe, according to the Strong H4643, it is ma'asar. Now, this Hebrew abridged literally means tenth.
Now, what was used for tithing in the context of Abraham? That's another context that tends to be used commonly in the assemblies when referring to tithe. This is a story that, just a summary of what happened in this chapter. So there were 4 kings that wanted to overtake 5 different regions. They managed to do so after years of back and forth in battles. And the custom of that time was that whoever won the battle or won the wars took the spoils. So whatever, and also took control of the territory, and that territory had to pay tribute or taxes to the victors as well. So these 4 kings took control of these 5 territories, to include, Sodom and Gomorrah and other territories. And in the whole scheme of things, Abraham's nephew Lot, who was living in, the region of Sodom and Gomorrah at the time, was captured and taken to, a faraway place. And of course, someone went and told Abraham that Lot had been taken. And so Abraham decided he's going to get his nephew, which was like a son to him, since Lot's father passed away in a fire trying to save little idols that they created. So Abraham took him in like a son. So you can imagine, if you heard your child is abducted, you're going to do everything to get your child back. So he went, and there were some men of a different region who said, "You've been good to us. We want to go with you to this war." So these men go with him to the war. They're by night, I believe it was.
By then.
And they defeated these armies. And as was the custom, they took control of all the war spoils and returned to, returned home. And of course, this is now where things get very interesting.
Mhm.
What happens next? They get back home.
So they were greeted by first by Melchizedek. That pronouncing it right?
Melchizedek.
Melchizedek, yes. Who Abraham realized will know the Most High.
And of course, Melchizedek is the only king priest.
Yeah.
There was no one else who was said to be a king priest outside of Yahushua HaMashiach. So, but he was a king priest. So
yes. So Melchizedek offered bread and wine to Abraham, and Abraham took the offer that Melchizedek gave to him, the gift, and also gave Abraham gave Melchizedek some of the spoils from the war, which is a tenth of the spoils. But not only that, also the king of Sodom, the Malach of Sodom, came to Abraham and said to him, "Give me the people and you keep the spoil." But Abraham refused the king's offer of giving him the people and then taking the spoil. What Abraham did was ask King of Sodom to allow the men that went with him take from the spoil, the spoils from the war, and then whatever is left, you can take it. Abraham did not want anything from that war, spoil from that war.
And of course, those spoils would have included grains, animals, wine, olive oil, and so on, as was indicated earlier in the chapter.
Yes. Now, Aaron's gift was not the tithe from the Torah law. It was not yet established. Now, this tenth that Abraham offered is his choice of tithes, not law. Abraham could have kept the spoils because he won the battle, but Abraham took nothing from the war spoils. He gave a tenth to Melchizedek as a gift to honor him in return for the gifts he received. So it's basically like an exchange.
So, in essence, Melchizedek, who is of the Most High, and earlier you said Abraham would have recognized that he is from the Most High, and this was because when Melchizedek came to him and greeted him, he declared the name of the Most High, and he also declared that it was the Most High Yahuwah that gave this battle, the victory, into Abraham's hand. So he acknowledged the Most High in all things, and we can see why Abraham would have accepted his gift, but rejected the gift of the king of Sodom, because the honor for the exchange between Abraham and Melchizedek would honor Yahuwah. But if there was any form of agreement and acceptance between him and the king of Sodom, he understood that honor would not go to Yahuwah, but to the king of Sodom. So he said, I don't want anything from you. You're not going to say, you made me rich.
So, as you just said, he refused the Malach or the king of Sodom offer. Instead, gave it to the men who assisted him and the rest to the king of Sodom.
So how much did Abraham take?
None.
He took none.
There was none.
So it went three ways.
So it went to Melchizedek. A tenth of it went to him. Then he said to the king of Sodom, allow the men to take. There was not an amount that was said though, that was taken. And then whatever was left, he gave it to King Sodom of Sodom.
So even though he could have taken, because he did win the battle, he took nothing of it. And this wasn't of his personal possession that he took from home. This was what he took back from the war.
Yes. And from that, Abraham understood that Yahuwah was his source of provision.
So in this, we're not seeing where Abraham would have then followed a 10% Torah law to tithe. This was him choosing
to do it
because he was honored by king and priest Melchizedek, that he would honor him back. And so he gave a tenth of the war spoils. He could do that. I mean, he could have chosen, as we said earlier, to take everything, but instead he just gave it back all away.
All away. Yeah. Now, according to Genesis 28, verse 20 to 22, or the Abrit Barshi 28 to 20 to 22, then Jacob made a vow, saying, if Yahuwah will be with me and will watch over me on this journey I am taking, and I will give me food to eat and clothes to wear.
You want to read that again?
All right. Then Jacob
or
Yakub made a vow, saying, if Yahweh will be with me and will watch over me on this journey I am taking, and will give me food to eat and clothes to wear, so that I return safely to my father's household, then Yahweh will be my Elohim. And this stone that I have set up as a pillar will be Yahweh's house. And all that you give, I will give you a tenth.
So we see here again a tenth being offered to Yahuwah out of a choice and not out of a law. So just as Abraham chose to honor the king priest because of the honor given or extended to him, the kindness extended to him, Jacob now in this case, or Jacob, is saying, this is my promise to Yahuwah. He wasn't necessarily, you don't see the scripture saying Yahuwah commanded him to do it. You know, this was, in essence, what appeared to be a choice.
Now, here we see both men giving a tenth of their produce. One should know that at this point, Yahuwah did not give an instruction of tithing to him. But based on these events, we can say there was a practice of giving a tenth of their produce. So the first time tithes were commanded.
In Leviticus or Uikara 27, verses 30 to 33, it says, a tithe of everything from the land, whether grain from the soil or fruit from the trees, belongs to Yahuwah. It is Kodash to Yahuwah. Whoever would redeem any of their tithe must add a fifth of the value to it. Every tithe of the herd and flock, every 10th animal that passes under the shepherd's rod will be Kodash to Yahuwah. No one may pick out the good from the bad or make any substitution. If anyone does make a substitution, both the animal and its substitute become Kodash and cannot be redeemed. So here we see where, well, I'm not seeing any money mentioned here.
No, but this is actually the first time that Yahuwah gave an instruction about tithing. And we see where fruit is mentioned, grain is mentioned, and also herd or livestock was mentioned here. Still, there's no money mentioned in this scripture.
So we can see how bringing the tithe into the storehouses would have applied, because we see here grain and fruits coming in and livestock coming in. It's like a big barn kind of situation where you're bringing all those things in. Yeah.
Yes, amat
or truth.
Now, we do have different types of tithe. We see where there are 4 types of tithe. So we have the Levitical tithe, the festivals tithe, the poor tithe, and the priest tithe. Now, everything that applies to the priest and the Levi stay with the priest and the Levi.
I guess we're going to go into all of them now, right?
Yes, we're going to go and see what all of them have to say.
What are they about?
So the Levitical tithe, Now, this is found in Numbers 18, verse 21 to 24. And it reads, I give to the Levites all the tithes in Yasharal, or as Israel, as their inheritance in return for the work they do while serving at the tent of meeting. From now on, Yasharal must not go near the tent of meeting, or they will bear the consequences of their crimes and will die. It is the Levites who are to do the work at the tent of meeting and bear the responsibility for any offensive they commit against it. This is a lasting ordinance for the generation to come. They will receive no inheritance among Yasharal.
Instead, I give to the Levites as their inheritance the tithes that ye shall present as an offering to Yahuwah. That is why I said concerning them, they will have no inheritance among Yisrael.
If you notice, we highlight some key points. In verse 24, it says, I give to the Levites as their inheritance the tithes. If you remember what we mentioned earlier, tithes is referred to as grain, as we read so far,
Grains,
fruits, and livestock.
Animals, right?
So if this is what Yahuwah said to them, he gave to the Levites as their inheritance, as a tithe, he's referring to the grain, the fruit, and the livestock.
As we read so far.
And that Yahshua represent as an offering to Yahuwah.
So in offering, tithes is also an offering to Yahuwah. It's 10% or well, let me not say percent, 1/10 of whatever they produced or farmed, they would, because Yisrael was predominantly an agrarian society or a farming nation. And so whatever they would produce, they would take 1/10 of that produce as an offering to Yahuwah and give to the Levites. I guess we'll see who are the Levites. Let's see if they're going to be the pastors.
Well, who were the Levites? Now, those who perform a subordinate services associated with the public worship were known as Levites. In this capacity, the Levites were musicians, gatekeepers, guardians, and temple officials.
So they were like assistants in the temple.
Yeah.
Okay.
They are assistants in the temple. Now, the Levites was given to Aaron's descendant to help. It's a gift from Yahuwah. All right.
So according to the script, in Numbers or Bamadabar 18, verses 2 to 7, it's explaining that the Levites or the Lui were supposed to be the persons who helped the priests or the sons of Aharon. And let's read it. It says, bring your brothers also, the tribe of Levi, the tribe of your father, near with you, that they may be joined to you and minister to you or help you. But you and your sons, this is Aharon and his sons, with you shall be before the tent of meeting. They shall keep your commands and the duty of the whole tent. Only they shall come near to the vessels of the temple and to the altar. that they do not die, neither they nor you. They shall be joined to you and keep the responsibility of the tent of meeting for all the service of the tent. A stranger shall not come near to you. You shall perform the duty of the temple and the duty of the altar, that there be no more wrath on the children of Israel. Behold, I myself have taken your brothers, the Levites, from among the children of Israel. They are a gift to you, dedicated to Yahuwah, to do the service of the tent of meeting. You and your sons with you shall keep your priesthood for everything of the altar, and for that within the veil you shall serve. I give you the service of the priesthood as a gift. The stranger who comes near shall be put to death.
Thank you. So note that according to the scripture that we just read, tithes was set up between the Levite and the priest. But there were some tithes that was not supposed to go to the priest.
So I suppose we'll look at those tithes that should not go to the priest, and those that and whatever should.
So Levites were not given
Land.
yes, they were not given land like the tribe of Israel, but the Levitical priests, indeed, the old tribe of Levi, are to have no allotment or inheritance with Israel. They will live on the food offering presented to Yahuwah, for that is their inheritance. They shall have no inheritance among their fellow tribes. Yahuwah is their inheritance as he promised them. And this is from Deuteronomy 18, verse 1. I'm going to read 1 to 2. I'm going to read it again. They shall live on the food offering presented to Yahuwah, for that is their inheritance. They shall have no inheritance among their fellow tribes. Yahuwah is their inheritance as he promised them.
So again, I'm seeing food coming out. I'm still not seeing money coming out here.
No? Now, Numbers 35, verse 7, it said, all the cities that you give to the Levite shall be 48 with their pasture land. Now, we have the festival tithe. Now, this can be found in Deuteronomy 14, verse 22 to 27.
And it says, be sure to place aside a tenth of all that your fields produce each year. Eat the tithe of your grain, new wine, and olive oil, and the firstborn of your herds and flocks in the presence of Yahuwah your Elohim, at the place he will choose as a dwelling for his name. so that you may learn to revere Yahuwah, your Elohim, always. But if the place is too distant, and you have been Baruch or blessed by Yahuwah, your Elohim, and cannot carry your tithe because the place where Yahuwah will choose to place his name is so far away, then exchange your tithe for money and take the money with you. Go to the place Yahuwah, your Elohim, will choose. Use the money to buy whatever you like: cattle, sheep, wine, or other fermented drink, or anything you desire. Then you and your household shall eat there in the presence of Yahuwah, your Elohim, and rejoice. 27. And do not neglect the Levites living in your towns, for they have no allotment or inheritance of their own. So some things are highlighted here, some main points are highlighted. So this particular tithe described here was or appeared to be an annual tithe, like the feasts or festivals. So it says each year. Another interesting thing that jumps out or is highlighted in verse 23 is eat the tithe. Eat it.
And the only thing you can eat
is food. So this is interesting. 24. And if we should combine the different highlights, it says, if that place is too distant, so the place you're supposed to bring your tithe, you cannot carry your tithe because the place where Yahuwah chooses is so far away, then exchange your tithe for money. Go to the place Yahuwah, your Elohim, will choose. Use the money to buy whatever you like: cattle, sheep, wine, or other fermented drink, or anything you desire. Then you and your household shall eat and rejoice, of course, in the presence of Yahuwah. Do not neglect the Levites in your towns. This is interesting because I once heard a preacher say that tithe now is money because tithe then wasn't money. No, tithe now is money because money didn't exist then. But that's not true, because this script, according to Deuteronomy or Hadabarim 14, verses 22 to 27, money did exist.
Because it sells.
Yeah, it says that you should sell or exchange your tithe for money. So there's a distinction here. Money was not tithe. Because if money was included in the tithe, you couldn't exchange it or sell it for money. So tithe is specifically food.
So based on what we are seeing so far, it's all about food.
It's all about food. We're not seeing anything about money being tithe. But we do see here
where
if they could not take the tithe where Yahuwah instructs them to take it or to bring it, then they could sell it, get some money, go to where Yahuwah says they should go and shop, buy whatever they want: food, cattle, sheep, wine, whatever they desired, sit with their families and feast, and remember those who were assisting in the temple or in the tent of meetings, the Levites. If anywhere in their towns, they were supposed to include them too, because they don't have any inheritance. And I'm not seeing where, based on what is described here, Levites are not pastors.
They are not pastor. Yeah, it did not say they're pastor.
Man, I sure pumped a whole lot of money out of ignorance that I could have used otherwise. And don't get me wrong, I don't mind giving and giving into things that honor the Most High Yahuwah. But I don't want the deception in giving. And so far, I have not seen where tithe is money.
All you're seeing is
All I'm seeing is tithe being food.
in food.
You know, so to say that because we no longer farm, this is another thing they say, because we no longer farm, then now it translates as money because you're working money. But we cannot add to nor take away from the scripture. That's not what it is saying. If it could have been done like this, then money could have been used too, because the scripture we read earlier said that this is what they'll be paid for their work in the tent.
Yep.
They'll be paid food.
Food is what they will be paid.
If they were to be paid money, it would have said paid in money.
Yeah. But it said,
which means people were clearly getting money. I mean, they had to get money when they sold their crops. So
yeah, that's true. Now, during these feast days, men should appear unto Yahuwah. Now, if you read in Deuteronomy 16,
Deuteronomy 16,
3 times a year, all your men must appear before Yahuwah, your Elohim, at the place he will choose. At the festival of unleavened bread, the festival of weeks, and the festival of tabernacle. No one should appear before Yahuwah empty-handed. Each of you must bring a gift in the proportion to the way Yahuwah, your Elohim, has barak you or blessed you.
So this is in essence showing me then, so there were 3 feasts that were very important for men to gather in the place where Yahuwah chose. The place where Yahuwah chose. They would go before him during these 3 festivals or feasts. And they were told not to come empty-handed. And each of them were to bring a gift according to how they were blessed.
Yes.
So whatever they had,
they should.
That's how they decipher their gifts, out of how they were prospering, you know. And this is why we can see where the script says, if the place where Yahuwah chose, just as this is saying here,
yeah.
If the place where he chose for you to come before him is too far, then sell it. Turn it into money. Use the money to buy what you want, wherever he told you to go and buy stuff.
Yeah.
And feast with your family, and if there were any Levites nearby, you invite them. You invite them.
Let them partake in that.
But the interesting thing about this 10th is that it comes as you are blessed, as Yahuwah baruch you or blesses you.
Because some people might have more than
some. Some will have more than some.
So it's not putting a strain on you to say, come with X certain amount.
It's like some preachers saying, I got in my spirit that you must take $10,000, $100,000. No, we're not saying the Most High never told them that. We're just saying for some it has become a great practice now to say this. And you find that some persons, when others who take more come, they may seem to get the better part of the prayers and the recognition, and those who take less, you know. And we can see how that hypocrisy is not new, because when the widow took her mite, you know, Yahusha would have pointed out that she
her
gave
all.
everything. You know, even though it seemed so small,
She gave everything.
she gave everything.
Yeah, she did.
And even the widow's mite was not called tithe, even though that was money. You know.
Now we have the fourth tithe.
So we've looked at the Levitical tithe
and the festival tithe. Now we're looking at the poor tithe. And this is taken from Deuteronomy 40. And it said,
and I guess also Deuteronomy 26
verse,
will be referred to as well.
And it said, at the end of every third year, bring the entire tithe of that year's harvest and stored it in the nearest town. Give it to the Levites, who will receive no allotment of land among you, as well as to the foreigners living among you, orphans, and the widows in your towns, so they can eat and be satisfied. Then Yahuwah, your Elohim, will barak you in all your work of your hand. Now as you see, we highlight some key part. But we want to point out that it said at the end of every third year.
This is interesting. So this particular tithe was at the end of every 3 years. Yeah. This is when this tithe would come in. And it says the entire tithe of that year's harvest. Sure. So when you look at the harvest for the whole year, you're bringing a tenth of that entire year's harvest to the nearest storehouse in the nearest town. So this particular one says it's somewhere nearby. And it's a storehouse, similar to what Malachi referred to about bring all the tithe into the storehouse.
So there was somewhere that the food.
So there was somewhere the food was always stored. And remember, this seemed to be, as he stated in 29, because the Levites had no land, they had nowhere to put this food. So there were specific storehouses that would store these offerings of tithe, and they would then be distributed amongst a particular group of or 3 or 4 sets of persons, 3 or 4 categories of persons, and they are listed here.
So he said the Levites will get, the foreigners living among you, or some may see strangers. It said the orphans and the widows in your town.
And these persons really had no land and no inheritance. Because if we notice, even for the harvest type of feasts, Yisrael, or the nation of Yisrael, was told not to touch the corners or the edges of their fields.
Yes.
Because this same group or these categories of people were to benefit from that, because they had no farmlands. They had nothing that they could use. They were sojourners or foreigners. They were orphans. They were widows who had no one to take care of them.
Yeah.
And they were Levites who had no allotment.
Yahuwah gave them the instruction just to assist them.
So in essence, this was like support for others who had nothing.
So Yahuwah put things in place to ensure those who are less fortunate, those who need help, there's a way of getting help.
That's right. And this is interesting, because if these preachers are saying there is a separate offering to help people from tithe, and that's so wrong, because this is a type of tithe. It's not money anyway.
It's not money.
But we're saying even if they tried to help others, because you see this big gap in a lot of assemblies. You see where the leaders and the preachers and those persons seem to be prospering, and those who are giving in terms of the congregation or the general assembly in many of these assemblies seem to be so poor, or seem to be suffering, or seem to be less fortunate. But there is provision for everyone, at least for food.
At
For
least
food. And the scripture here clearly says, so they can eat.
Yep. And
So
the
they're
only
not
thing
eating money.
is
Food.
food.
They're eating food and be satisfied, which means it's a lot of food.
And their tummy is full.
It's a lot of food because you're taking for the whole year.
Yeah. All right. Deuteronomy 26. Let's see what it says. It said, every third year, you must offer a special tithe of your crops, as you mentioned earlier. In this year of the special tithe, you must give your tithes to the Levites, foreigners, orphans, and widows, so that they will have enough to eat in your
town. So every single town had a storehouse, and all these persons were able to go there and benefit from supplies of food.
Right.
So we can see how if you're farming and you didn't take in what you should, you're really robbing Yahuwah, because Yahuwah promised to be the inheritance of these people since they had nothing.
They have nothing. Yeah.
So when Malachi or Malachiahu says, you're robbing me in the tithes and offerings, these things that you're supposed to be taking into my storehouses, some persons apparently weren't doing that. And so the food that should be shared with these particular groups of persons was running short. And persons were apparently withholding.
It's more, yeah, you're correct. Because they have to be withholding. Why he would have mentioned that they are robbing Yahuwah. Now, finally, we have the priest tithe. And this is taken from Numbers 18:25 to 32. And Yahuwah said to Moses, Moshe, speak to the Levites and say to them, when you receive from Yasharal the tithe I give you as your inheritance, you must present a tenth of the tithe as Yahuwah's offering. Your offering will be reckoned to you as a grain from the threshing floor or juice from the wine press. In this way, you also will present an offering to Yahuwah from all the tithes you receive from Yasharal. From these tithes, you must give Yahuwah portion to Aaron the priest. You must present as Yahuwah portion the best and kodesh of everything given to you. Say to the Levites, when you present the best part, it will be reckoned to you as the product of the threshing floor or the wine press. You and your household may eat the rest of it anywhere, for it is your wages for your work at the tent of meeting. By presenting the best part of it, you will not be guilty in this matter. Then you will not defile the dedicated offering of Yasharal, and you will not die.
A number of things are coming out here. This particular instruction was for the Levites. So this is what many refer to as the tithe of tithes. So when Yisrael took their tithes to the Levites was to look for the best of all the produce they received from the threshing floor, which spoke to grains, such as, barley and wheat and that sort of a thing, and also the wine. We can see here grain used to make flour, and that which was pressed from the wine press to make wine, the best. We can see how Melchizedek could have presented bread made from grain and wine. This was a very good gift because this is considered the best. So we can see how when he offered the best to Abraham, Abraham gave back the best to him, because towards the end of this particular group of verses, it says that they must present the best. And that's in verse 29. You must present as Yahuwah's portion the best and kudash, or dedicated, of everything given to you. So you give the best now to the priests, and this is how the priests got their tithe from. So tithe from the nation, then from that tithe to the priest. And then he says, you and your family may eat the rest of it, for this is what you've earned. This is your salary. This is your wage of work at the tent of meeting. Money was in circulation. They weren't paid money. They were given food. And it says, by presenting the best part, verse 32, you will not be guilty in this matter and will not defile the dedicated offerings. Could the Levites have been included in the ones who were robbing Yahuwah? Could it be? We're not saying yes and we're not saying no. Could it be? So could it be that Yisrael was robbing Yahuwah because they're not taking in the portion that belonged to those four groups of people? And so there was not enough, and Yahuwah is their inheritance. So whatever comes in is Yahuwah presenting to them. Could it be that the Levites were robbing Yahuwah by not presenting tithe of tithe, or the best of the tithe?
So there was a part that someone was actually robbing Yahuwah. Yeah.
Well, whatever that is,
But
let's hear in the comment section. What do you think? What do you think Malachi was referring to when Yahuwah says, you've robbed me in tithes and offering? What do you think was being referred to? Could it be Yisrael was being referred to not bringing in the food? Could it be the Levites not bringing in the best tenth of what they receive, of the tithe they receive? Let's hear from you.
So was tithing considered as money? Now, according to Leviticus 27, verse 30 to 31, he said, a tithe of anything from the land, whether grain from the soil or fruit from the trees, belong to Yahuwah. It is dedicated to Yahuwah. Whoever would redeem any of their tithe must add a fifth of the value to it.
Only the descendants of Aaron were the priests. Verse 41 of Exodus 28 says, after you place these clothes on your brother Aaron and his sons, anoint and ordain them, dedicate them so they may serve me as priests. So for many preachers today who are claiming tithe belongs to them, this was for a specific group of people. The sons of Aaron, as well as the Levites of that time. And they were all serving Yahuwah in the tent of meetings, the tabernacle at that time. Without that particular order being in place, the tithe for the Levites and the tithe for the priests no longer takes effect. We can see, however, how we can still give to those who are in need, the poor tithe, because we still have widows' orphans. But again, if you're not farming, then you wouldn't necessarily have anything to give in terms of tithe. Wouldn't be called a tithe in that case, but it would be probably called offering. Let's see as we move along.
So should we give?
Yes.
Free will?
Well, let's see. That's what the scripture is saying we should give, or something else.
Now, free will giving is commanded in whatever way, even money. Now, in the scripture, 2 Corinthians 9, it said, verse 6 to 7, it said, whoever sows sparingly will also reap sparingly, and whoever sows generously will also reap generously. Each of you should give what you have decided in your heart to give, not reluctantly or under compulsion, for Yahuwah loves a cheerful giver. So giving is what we're told to do from a free will. So do it based on what is in your heart, what you have decided on, what you want to do.
You shouldn't be reluctantly, meaning it shouldn't be something you're hesitant to do. So if you have second guesses or second thoughts about doing it, or you have doubts, so you don't really want to do it, then don't do it, But it should be out of, a heart that is willing to give generously.
So just like what you mentioned from early on when we just started, that you were giving willingly because
I wanted to give.
Because it's something that you love to do.
Yes, I just didn't think all these different categories of money were necessary, which I'm seeing now.
But yes.
But Yahuwah, as the scripture says here, loves a cheerful giver. So, and it shouldn't be something that you're forced to do. Not out of compulsion or driving fear into you, as many preachers try to do. Use scriptures to drive fear into people to give this amount or to give that amount, or to give 10% of your salary. We're seeing here in the renewed covenant that in Yahusha and the apostles' time, that giving generously was really the command, giving freely. And it's also in Torah, where it speaks of free will offering,
So tithe in the renewed covenant, while the Brit Kadasha, or renewed covenant,
or what some people call the New Testament.
Does not command or emphasize tithing. It presents giving as a duty for Yahuwah's people and does not speak negatively of tithing. Yahusha approved of the careful tithing of the religious leaders of his day. This is found in Luke 11 verse 42. And if you read it, we will see where Yahusha rebuke them for what they left undone.
All right, let's look for that and read it. So Luke or Lucas 11 verse 42. And it says, "But woe to you, Pharisees, for you tithe mint and rye or rue and every herb, but you bypass justice and Yahuwah's love. You ought to have done these and not have left the other undone." So he's saying, yeah, go ahead and tithe your mint and rye and other herbs. See, it's not money again.
Yeah.
This is Yahusha speaking now. And when they're apparently in that time, tithe was still food, not money. And he's saying, yes, go ahead and do that. But stop neglecting the other part that's important, like the love of expressing the love or showing the love of the Most High to others, and ensuring that you are just in all your dealings and right in the Most High's eyes, you know?
So they were placing emphasis on the wrong thing.
On one thing.
On one thing, yeah. Mm-hmm. I'm forgetting the other.
And neglecting
the other. Notice their tithes were crops and not money.
So it was money.
No, it wasn't money.
Okay.
So their tithes were crops and not money. Giving is a valid test of sincerity of our love for Yahuwah and others.
And of course, referenced here is 2 Corinthians 8, verse 8, and then we'll read 2 Corinthians 9, verses 7 to 13.
And it said,
so 8, verse 8.
2 Corinthians 8, verse 8, I speak not by way of commandment, but as proving through the earnestness of others, the sincerity also of your love.
And then we go to 2 Corinthians 9. I'll go from verse
6 to 13.
6 to 13. Remember this: he who sows sparingly will also reap sparingly. He who sows bountifully will also reap bountifully. Let each man give according as he has decided in his heart, not grudgingly or under compulsion, for Yahuwah loves a cheerful giver. And Yahuwah is able to make all love abound to you, that you, always having all sufficiency in everything, may abound to every good work. So you may be provided or supplied with everything you need for all good work. As it is written, he has scattered abroad, he has given to the poor, his righteousness remains forever. Now may he who supplies seed to the sower and bread for food, supply and multiply your seed for sowing and increase the fruits of your righteousness. You being enriched in everything to all generosity, which produces thanksgiving to Yahuwah through us. For this service of giving that you perform not only makes up for lack amongst the believers, but abounds also through much giving of thanks to Yahuwah. Seeing that through the proof given by this service, they esteem Yahuwah for the obedience of your confession, the Bashura or good news of Mashiach or Yahusha, and for the generosity of your contribution to them and to all. So we're seeing out of that giving should be like sowing, not as a burden. So it's like an investment for your own future. Because as you sow generously or bountifully, you reap accordingly. And if you sow sparingly,
then
you will reap a little bit, you know. So giving, so even though tithe is not money, but giving overall, whatever it is something that Yahuwah wants us to do. Giving, whether money or in kind, whatever.
And as he said, giving should not be not grudging or of necessity.
So you shouldn't give, out of a heart that says, okay, fine, I'll give because they say so, or I'll give hesitantly. I don't really want to do it, but it really should be something that you're cheerful about, because Yahuwah loves
a cheerful giver. Yeah. So giving must always include giving to the ministries that directly feed us spiritually.
So those places that, or those people that would have been a barakah or a blessing to us or to you, in every way, whatever can be done to give into these ministries. Paul is saying that it's not wrong if you also give to these particular ministries. I hear Toda outside barking up a storm. But it's nothing is wrong with giving into ministries, sowing whatever you can. If you can't, you can't. If you don't want to, you don't want to. But for those who choose to, it's a good thing to also honor those who have been a blessing to you. Just as Melchizedek was a blessing to Abraham, and he honored him by giving to him too. Because the renewed covenant's emphasis is on giving, not so much on tithing, there is no one answer to the question that someone may have: how much am I supposed to give? However, some people use the 10th to guide what they give. And that's fine if that's what you choose, according to your heart's desire. Yeah. But for those who may not be able to give this 10th, give whatever you purpose to give in your heart.
Whatever you can.
Whatever you can as you are blessed.
Yes. So we should have the attitude of some early Nazarenes who essentially said, we are not under the tithe, we can give more.
So there were some believers, or Nazarene, as they were called in the Hebrew or in the Average, who would have given abundantly. They weren't confined to a 10th. They just gave, and were prospered by the Most High Yahuwah accordingly. So giving shouldn't be a burden. Well, we have pretty much come to the end of this. I'm really thankful, Kris, that you came with this particular topic, hoping it has brought some clarity.
And I also thank you for being my strength, for supporting me through this ministry that I'm doing. All praise to the Most High.
All praise to the Most High. Let's summarize what was discussed today. Some of the key points that came out.
One was, we noticed tithe is not money.
It's not money.
So that is cleared up.
Both in the TaNaK, or the first covenant, and in the renewed covenant or New Testament, as some call it, none of it recognizes tithe as money.
All right.
We also saw where there were particular groups of people that received tithe. We saw where the Levites could be given tithe.
And then from the Levites, it go on to the priests.
It could go to the priests
who are given tithes.
Tithes of tithe. We saw where the orphans, the
Widows,
widows who had no one to take care of them, the foreigners who had no possessions, were also able to benefit from the tithe. And this, of course, comes under the four categories you discussed: the Levitical, the poor, the festival, and the priestly tithes. We saw where Malachi 3 is rarely being used out of context. It is not referring to money, but really food. Plants, animals, wine, oil that was brought into storehouses in nearby towns. And, so the Yahuwah, who was the inheritance of those in need who were less fortunate, could also ensure they
receive a blessing from Yahuwah.
And of course, free will.
Free will, yes.
Giving is good.
Giving is really good.
Whether it's money or otherwise.
But we have seen it work in our lives so far.
And we have seen it work.
We have seen where we give, and we see where Yahuwah opened them and poured his barakah or his blessing on us. All right.
Praise Yahuwah. So we are the Nazarene of Yahuwah. Indeed, all praise to the Most High Yahuwah.
Yes.
And Achad Ahaba. One
love.
And Shalom.
And Shalom.
Praise Yahuwah.